They told you to avoid debt. They never told you the rich use it to win. At 44, Mark paid off his last debt. No more credit cards, no student loans, no car payments. His mortgage? Gone. He was finally free. That night, he opened a cheap bottle of wine and sat in silence, expecting to feel peace. Instead, he felt stuck. No savings, no investments, no new income, just the same salary, the same routine, and the sobering realization. He had spent 20 years escaping debt, but built nothing in the process. He did everything right, and yet he wasn't ahead. He was just tired. Now picture someone else, a 38-year-old real estate investor with $4.2 million in debt. He owes more than Mark ever earned in his life, and yet he's thriving. Why? Because his debt produces income. His loans fund assets, rental properties, businesses, equipment. Each dollar he owes is working, generating, feeding back into growth. He's not burdened. He's leveraged. That's the contrast no one teaches you. Debt isn't inherently good or bad. It's either productive or parasitic. You were taught to fear debt, to treat it like fire. Stay away, keep clean, don't take risks. And for most of the middle class, debt is fire, because it's used to burn cash on things that don't grow. Vacations, gadgets, cars that lose value the second they leave the lot. But the rich, they were taught a different rule. Debt is a tool, a bridge, a strategy. It's not about the amount, it's about the direction. Because when used well, debt doesn't shrink you, it scales you. So here's the real question. What's the difference between the debt that drains you and the debt that builds them? That's what we're going to uncover. It's not about how much debt you have, it's what it does for you. Two people take out $20,000. One buys a brand new car, smooth, fast, leather interior, monthly payments of $480. The other buys a rundown duplex, fixes it up, rents it out, and within 6 months, it pays him $700 a month. Same amount of debt. Two very different outcomes. The first loses money, the second he signs the papers. The second starts earning the moment the tenants move in. One pays for status, the other builds for freedom. And here's the key. Both think they made a smart choice. Because no one ever taught them the difference between good debt and bad debt. Bad debt is simple. It takes money out of your pocket every month and gives you nothing back. It funds consumption, instant comfort. Things that feel good in the moment, but decay in value. Cars, vacations, electronics. It's the kind of debt banks love to offer you because they know you'll pay interest for years and have nothing to show for it. It keeps you working, dependent, quiet. Because it gives the illusion of wealth without any of the power. Good debt is different. It's not flashy, it's functional. It puts money into your pocket, not someday, but predictably, consistently. It funds assets, things that generate cash flow, real estate, inventory, equipment, education, when it leads to monetizable skill, systems. It's not about playing it safe, it's about playing it smart. The rich understand that good debt accelerates. It's a multiplier. It buys time, scale, and leverage, the things most people spend decades trying to earn slowly. Why weren't you taught this? Because it changes the game. It shifts you from consumer to investor, from buyer to builder. And if more people understood this, they'd stop using debt to impress and start using it to advance. They'd ask different questions before signing a loan. Will this earn income? Will it increase my cash flow? What's the return, not just the interest rate? But instead, we ask, can I afford the payment? And that's the trap. Debt isn't the problem. Direction is. The next time you borrow money, don't just ask if you can afford it. Ask, will it pay me back or lock me in? Debt doesn't trap them. It multiplies them. Imagine trying to save $200,000 by working your job. Even with a decent salary and disciplined budgeting, it could take 10-15 years, assuming no emergencies, no lifestyle inflation, no financial detours. Now imagine someone else who gets access to a $200,000 loan and uses it today to acquire a cash-generating business. Within 18 months, that business pays back the loan and continues producing income for years. One person saves for safety, the other borrows for scale. That's the leverage gap, and it's exactly why the rich don't fear debt. They weaponize it. Leverage is using other people's money to accelerate your own outcomes. It's not recklessness, it's architecture. A well-designed plan to create income faster than your own capital allows. The rich know they don't need to own 100% of the money to own 100% of the opportunity. They understand return on investment, ROI. They measure risk not by emotion, but by math. If a loan costs them 6% interest but generates 25% profit, it's not a burden, it's an engine. Meanwhile, most people won't touch a loan unless they're desperate. Or worse, they'll use it to fund something that doesn't return anything at all. Take David. He didn't grow up wealthy. At 33, he found a franchise opportunity, a food truck brand expanding fast, offering full operational training and branding. It required $75,000 up front. David had $5,000 in savings. He pitched the model to a local investor, showed a 3-year projection with break-even in 9 months. The investor agreed to finance 90% of it as a low-interest loan. David signed. People called him crazy. Starting a business with debt? But in 14 months, he'd repaid the full amount. By year 2, he opened a second truck. Year 3, he licensed the brand in 2 other cities. What people called debt, he called a shortcut to freedom. The poor and middle class see debt as a hole. The rich see it as a ladder, but only if it leads somewhere. Debt without a plan is a prison. Debt with cash flow is leverage, and that's the difference. Intentionality. Rich borrowers don't just ask, "Can I get the loan?" They ask, "What's the velocity of this capital? How quickly will it move back toward me? What's my downside?" And if the numbers make sense, they move. Because for them, time is more expensive than interest. If you wait to save every dollar, the opportunity may be gone by the time you're ready. But if you learn to use debt as a tool, to buy productive assets, not empty status, you can collapse decades of saving into years of scaling. That's not just rich thinking, that's strategic thinking. And it's available to anyone who's willing to shift the question from, "Can I afford this?" to, "Can this afford me freedom?" The weight of debt isn't the amount, it's the absence of a plan. 2 families. Both take out $50,000 in loans. One uses it to remodel their kitchen, marble countertops, new cabinets, designer lighting. It looks amazing on Instagram. The other uses the same amount to purchase and equip a small warehouse filled with rented commercial-grade equipment, lighting kits, tripods, AV gear. By the end of the first month, Family 2 has 3 local production companies paying $2,000 a month to use the space. In under 3 years, the debt is repaid, and the asset now generates $3,000 a month in clean profit. Meanwhile, Family 1 is still making payments on their cabinets, hoping the property value eventually catches up. That's the trap most people fall into, thinking what you borrow matters more than why. But the truth is simple. Debt isn't heavy when it's carrying income. It's heavy when it's carrying nothing but emotion. For many, loans become emotional purchases wrapped in financial language. We needed a better car for the baby. We wanted a wedding to remember. The kitchen just felt too outdated. None of those things are wrong, but they're not investments. They're expressions. They don't pay you back. They drain you slowly, month after month, with no return but memories and style. The rich don't avoid debt, they aim it. They treat borrowed money like a worker. If it's not producing, it's fired. When they take out a loan, there's a cash flow map attached to it, a forecast, a plan for how this dollar borrowed today turns into $3 next year. And if the math doesn't make sense, they pass, no matter how emotionally exciting the project seems. That's why their debt feels lighter, because it comes with clarity, direction, flow. They don't measure debt by how it feels. They measure it by what it does. Meanwhile, most people carry silent debt shame, not because they borrowed, but because they borrowed without alignment. They pay each month, but can't point to anything that's improving. That's the real weight, not the interest rate, but the internal voice saying, "I'm stuck." And that feeling doesn't come from numbers. It comes from disconnection, from using money as a reaction instead of a system. So here's the question. When you borrow, does the money start working or just sitting? Because when debt works, it feels like momentum. When it doesn't, it feels like gravity. They offer you credit cards, not capital. That's not a mistake. Have you ever wondered why it's so easy to get a credit card and so hard to get a business loan? Why the bank will gladly approve you for a $10,000 line to buy clothes, gadgets, and vacations, but tighten up when you ask for $10,000 to start a service that could generate cash flow? That's not a glitch. That's design. The system doesn't want you leveraged for power. It wants you leveraged for consumption. Because bad debt keeps you obedient. Good debt makes you dangerous, independent, strategic, harder to control. And they don't teach that in school. Take two clients. Sarah, a nurse with $60K salary, gets offered 3 credit cards at 24% APR without even asking. No business plan, no approval process, no accountability. Just swipe and spend. Meanwhile, Daniel, a skilled electrician with 5 years' experience and a solid idea for launching a home repair company, gets denied for a $15,000 startup loan. Why? Not enough collateral. In reality, Daniel's business could generate income in 60 days. But Sarah? She's on the hook for 10 years of minimum payments for things that will never return a cent. One builds dependency. The other builds capacity. Guess which one gets approved? Banks aren't evil, but they're not neutral. They're profit machines. And the most profitable kind of debt is the kind you'll never escape from. Consumer debt. Emotion-driven. Recurring. Quiet. It's predictable. That's why they market it to you aggressively. You deserve it. Treat yourself. No interest for 12 months. It's not generosity. It's bait. They want you thinking about payments, not possibility. Because the longer you finance your lifestyle, the harder it is to finance your freedom. The rich are taught early to view capital as a tool, not a trap. Their families help them build credit not to buy, but to borrow for growth. They use debt to acquire income, not image. That's why they understand that the question isn't, "Can I get approved?" It's, "What will this approval build?" And when a loan doesn't increase their cash flow or capacity, they walk away, no matter how shiny the offer, because they know that easy debt is often expensive debt, and that systems are built to reward the unaware. So here's the shift. Stop asking if you qualify for debt. Start asking if your debt qualifies to be part of your plan. They teach their kids not to fear debt, but to control it. At 15, Jordan wanted to start a t-shirt brand, not to get rich, just to try something. He designed a logo, built a free Shopify site, but needed $500 to order his first batch of shirts. His dad didn't just hand him the cash. He gave him a loan contract, $500 at 10% interest, to be repaid in 60 days. "Why interest?" Jordan asked. "Because money has a cost," his father said. "And if you don't learn that now, you'll learn it the hard way later." It wasn't punishment, it was training. Within 2 months, Jordan paid him back, with $80 profit left. More importantly, he learned what most people don't until they're drowning in credit card debt. That debt isn't evil, it's math. Rich families teach their kids early that debt is a financial lever, not a monster. They don't say never borrow. They say borrow with a plan. They don't say debt is dangerous. They say debt must serve a purpose. That purpose? Predictable return, cash flow, measurable upside. If a loan creates a system that pays you back, it's a tool. If it just creates stress, silence, or shame, it's a trap. The lesson isn't about credit scores, it's about control, about using debt like a surgeon uses a scalpel, carefully, precisely, with full awareness of risk and reward. In middle-class homes, debt is usually hidden, either feared or ignored. Kids grow up seeing parents whisper when bills arrive, stress when the card is declined, or joke nervously about how much is left on the mortgage. There's no structure, just tension. So children inherit financial anxiety instead of financial thinking. The message becomes, debt is something that happens to you. Rich families flip that. They say, debt is something you design. That shift changes everything. Because the truth is, we all teach our kids about debt, whether we mean to or not. We teach them through how we respond to emergencies, through how we swipe, explain, or avoid. But the wealthy do it intentionally. They involve their kids in decision-making, let them help calculate costs, weigh returns, predict risks. They treat debt like a language, and the earlier their kids speak it, the less likely they are to become victims of it. So the real question isn't whether your child will use debt, it's how soon you'll teach them to master it. You don't need millions, you need a model. Most people think strategic debt is only for the rich, that you need a massive portfolio, elite advisors, or connections to banks that don't even have branches. But strategy isn't about wealth, it's about structure. You don't need millions to think like an investor. You need a simple model, a checklist that tells you, this debt will help me grow. Because the truth is, you're probably going to use debt either way. The only question is whether it's building you or burying you. So here's the model. 3 questions that change everything. 1. Does this debt create income? If the answer is no, pause. Debt that only feels good now but takes from you every month will eventually own you. Strategic debt must have the potential to return money, not just consume it. Starting a service, buying a rental unit, launching a scalable product. If income enters the picture predictably, the debt earns its place. 2. Is there a forecasted cash flow? Hope is not a strategy. Strategic debt has math behind it. You should be able to say, if I spend X, I expect to make Y in Z months. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it must be predictable. Whether it's from subscriptions, rent, sales, or services, there has to be a path to repayment that isn't just, I hope it works. 3. Is there a ceiling on the loss? Even good ideas can fail. The key is knowing the worst-case scenario before you sign. How much can you afford to lose without going under? What happens if the income is delayed? Strategic debt has guardrails. It's not gambling. It's measured exposure with defined risk. Take Mia. She borrowed $10,000 to launch a small online course platform around her skill set. She taught creative writing. She priced the course at $99, needed 102 sign-ups to break even. Within 5 months, she had 140 students. Her loan was repaid in 6. But here's the real win. Every course after that became pure profit. The debt wasn't a burden, it was a springboard because she had a model, not a wish. Most people evaluate debt based on comfort. Can I afford the payment? Does this feel safe? But strategic thinkers ask, Does this make me grow? Not emotionally, financially, structurally, long term. Because comfort is what keeps most people stuck in small cycles, while strategy creates exit ramps. So before you take on any debt, don't ask if it's easy. Ask if it's engineered. Because if it doesn't return value, it's not strategic. It's just dressed up pressure. Debt isn't the enemy. Denial is. Most people don't fear debt because it's dangerous. They fear it because they don't understand it. They avoid the numbers, the fine print, the future payments. They close the banking app and hope next month looks better. They carry balances and call it normal. But fear doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. And over time, that fear becomes denial, a quiet agreement to never get ahead, as long as you don't fall too far behind. That's the real trap, not debt itself, but your relationship to it. Debt is a tool, a powerful one. It can destroy a future, or build one faster than saving ever could. The difference isn't the balance, it's the blueprint. The question isn't, should I be in debt? The question is this debt building something that outlives the payment? Because when debt funds nothing but emotions, it becomes a hole. But when it funds income, leverage, or scale, it becomes a bridge. And the rich? They don't escape debt. They engineer it. They put it to work. They give it purpose. They master the terms before the terms master them. So how do you shift? You stop seeing debt as shame. You start seeing it as structure. You stop asking, how do I pay this off? And start asking, what system will make this pay me back? You stop reacting and start leading. It doesn't mean reckless loans or risky bets. It means precision, calm, intelligence. If you're in debt now, ask yourself, what am I building? And if the answer is nothing, it's time to change the plan, not just the payment. Because in the end, money doesn't reward fear. It rewards focus. And debt is not the villain. It's the character you write into your story, with either chaos or clarity. So the final question is this: are you using debt to run away, or to build something that makes escape unnecessary? You don't need to avoid debt. You need to understand it. And once you do, you'll stop fearing it like a storm and start using it like a sail.